It's on the fridge. I know where it is. I don't even know about that too.
That's a good place for it. Yeah. Don't lose it that way.
Yeah, exactly. It's right there. I remember where it is because, well, it never moves.
Minutes,
Lower screen.
share my screen, exactly.
There we go.
Now we've actually got presentation.
So they kind of screwed me.
You can tilt those up just a little bit. The monitor or?
Oh, there might be a way.
Well, maybe not. Oh, yeah, there we go.
We'll go away.
Perfect. That's good enough. Yeah. So if you're gonna tilt it down just like this. Layer.
Yeah.
Chief screwed this up.
Oh, boy.
You there?
Press the
Oh,
button.
you hit the button.
What did you do?
Sorry.
Just gotta push the menu button again or something.
Oh,
What did you do?
There you go.
Hey.
And then you do have to like, you have
Yeah,
to.
yeah, real quick. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and call the budget committee meeting to order. We'll start with the flag salute again. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so with that, first order of business, we'll need to elect a budget committee chair. This is like worse than high school. No one wants to make eye contact.
I nominate James Aldrich for.
What, just coming late?
Well, it's looking excited, so I thought maybe you.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, there we go. We have a nomination and a second. All those in favor of James Aldrich being our budget committee chair, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, be quiet and say nay. Awesome, okay.
Moving right along.
This James didn't vote against himself.
That's right.
Whoever you, sir.
I received a budget message, an overview of each department, please.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'm gonna start with the, see if I can get this going here. First, we'll start with the role of the budget committee. And as you can see, our goal here is to encourage public participation and involvement in the budget process, promote transparency, review the proposed budget, which we'll do this evening, and we will approve the budget and property tax levy for council consideration. So once we approve at this meeting, it goes on to council for adoption.
I always find that silly because we're all literally here.
We do have objectives for the city, and the city administration is all the folks in the city, not just the folks that sit in the front office, but public works, police department, city administrator. And essentially what we have, and let's see if I can do this without it going backwards here. There we go. We have core services. We want stability, we want controls, we want capital, and we want to be transparent to the public. And essentially what we're doing is we want to maintain current service levels where feasible and amid rising costs. We know that, we've been discussing that the value of money today is not what it's going to be tomorrow. We want to try and do what we can in a timely fashion. We're going to use our 27 budget today to frame policy choices for both the general fund, the street, water, and sewer funds. We're going to continue our long-range financial planning. We are going to review capital replacement planning as well. So this is something that every small city has issues with. One thing is you're always putting your fingers in the dike, trying to keep the dike from leaking. The second part of it is that when you get to the end of the day, if things aren't broken, you tend not to want to fix it. As a result, those things pile up and pile up. That's not good planning. And so what we want to do is to continue. We've started this process of looking down to the future, what we need, and to make sure that our planning is planned accordingly. An example that I'll bring up is our police department. We have the whole room for our officers are filled up. As we grow at 7 officers, you're going to need 10 officers, not in the near future, to take care of things like our new development and projects we have. Where are we going to fit them? Well, how are you going to deal with a retirement of an officer and you need a replacement on board months earlier to get them trained? So you have a space problem. So that's not something that has to be addressed today. But if you're looking in financial planning, when do we need that capacity and how can we plan for it? So that we're not basically bumped up against we're putting officers in patrol cars, for instance, because that's the only office that they have. Those are the kinds of things that we want to look forward with. Same thing with our public works department. We have things in the public works that have to be repaired. Do we plan for that now, or do we wait for them to break? If we wait for them to break down the road, it's going to be far more expensive if we can tend to them today. So that's the kind of financial planning. It's very basic, but it's very important. Before we do department presentations, I will go back a little bit into our budget message that we have. Our proposed budget does focus on the core services. And we're not, as you will see, we are not structurally balanced. What that means is that while our overall budget is balanced, we have 15 million coming in, we have 15 million going out approximately. What doesn't happen is within each fund, we have some deficits. In other words, the revenues do not meet the expense. We're spending more than what we're bringing in. Now, there are ways to deal with that. Some of those ways might be you raise rates, like on your water or sewer. You add fees for public safety. Those are ideas, but those are ways that you can deal with it. Traditionally, you look at things and say, well, I got to reduce costs. But to parlay a phrase in business, you do not make revenue by cutting expenses. And that's the same thing in public service as well. By cutting things, you are also deferring things. You are causing more people to work harder in other areas than you would otherwise. So it's a balance, it's a mix that we need to do. But going forward, that has something that council and the city and the departments need to address. I do not believe that necessarily this evening you're going to address all of those items, even with line items. What we will need to do, though, is in a very focused and very deliberate manner, look at this over this next year as to how we're going to make this work. The corrective strategies we've talked about a little bit. Some of it also is bringing in new revenue, mass economic development. How can we, and we've talked about this with the Urban Renewal District, that's part of the function of the Urban Renewal District, is to make a city that we can, for instance, as the mayor mentioned, have streets that are thicker and better for larger trucks to come down. It's also about making things look as though the city cares about its infrastructure. As an example, a city over in Eastern Oregon, Lapine, wanted to put in an industrial center, and they did. They all got together, they put an industrial park in, had the enterprise zone, everything. They had people saying, wow, this is great. When they were first doing it, but then they found out no one wanted to rent there. And of course, that panicked many. We wanted to find out why. And the business essentially said, well, if you can't take care of your town, how are we going to take care of my industrial? So there is a correlation between how we develop and maintain our city and the economic development that goes along with it. I think if you look at the budget message internally, you see the general fund operating surplus deficit. You will see that we're at about a $208,000 deficit in the general fund this year, and it grows incrementally each year. This is not a great position, because what you're really doing is, although the city has a balanced budget, what you're really doing is you're decreasing your beginning funds year after year. So that is something that will have to be corrected. The urban renewal district, as we take incremental funds out of that, as the mayor mentioned, as these properties that are listed are now flat, you're not receiving those monies in the general funds. That tends to exasperate what you see here already. The staffing in the town is fairly flat. We were only asking this year to add a half-time accounting position into our mix. We are really operating, I believe, at probably minimal that would be necessary for this size of the city of Hubbard and the level of sophistication of the city of Hubbard. I mentioned police officers, that will grow. Now, we do have other two towns that can contribute to that, but we are really at a very minimal level. The accounting position, the halftime, as it has been, the city administrator was also acting as the accounting person. From an auditing viewpoint, that's not a great way of doing things. Auditors always like to have at least two people, someone approving the funds and someone else accounting for the funds. So this will help tremendously with that, and also allow time to be spent in other areas rather than sitting down and accounting, such as community and economic development. I believe this does, in fact, reflect the Hubbard's commitment to responsible fiscal management and planning. We will have to look at solutions this year in terms of managing the structural deficits and moving forward with hopefully good economic development to bring in revenue, as well as some very good disciplined planning in each of our departments to make it work. I believe we can do that, but it will take some thought and effort to do so. With that, we have Chief Don Parisi with us this evening to give us a presentation. Julie Hedden is going to give us, our city recorder is also our court clerk, and will give us an overview of court now that we have 3 towns involved. And then I'll follow up with the remainder of administration and with public works. So, Chief.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for me. I can't believe it's been a year already. And here we are meeting again. So it's great to see you all. I want to thank you so much for your service and being here tonight. And just wanted to provide a brief overview of where your police department is currently at today, and some of the positive progress that we've made over the past year. So I'm pleased to report that the department itself is nearly fully staffed. We are 6 strong, and we have been able to grow to 7 because of the addition of Aurora. And I'm pleased to share with you this evening that we actually have that 7th position that's entered into the background investigation phase of employment. So not quite there, but just a couple minutes or a couple months, maybe perhaps away from that. And so we're really excited about that. Having a stable staffing will definitely allow us to maintain strong service levels and continue to be proactive in our policing efforts throughout the communities that we serve, including like the school district and whatnot as well. We also have been 5 months now into Aurora with the new contract, and overall things are going very well there. Our staff has done an excellent job at adapting to those extra hours of patrol work, investigative processes and things of that nature too. So very proud of them there. The partnership really has just been a nice even blend. We've really been well received there, and everybody seems to be getting along and really liking the service that the officers are providing. So as you can imagine, with any department, there are always equipment and operational needs that we would like to always be able to address. But certainly we understand that funding is limited for sure, as has just been shared. And because of that, we continue to try to work to leverage different grants and partnerships whenever possible to hopefully reduce those costs to the overall general fund and the city and whatnot. So I have a couple examples of those that I wanted to share with you that we're very proud of this last year. One of which was leveraging a grant through a nonprofit to replace our patrol rifles, our AR-15s and whatnot, which is you know, a crucial part of our job, that equipment. The rifles that we had were about 28 years old. And as you can imagine, technology improves and a lot of things, you know, come from that are very beneficial and whatnot. So we actually got a grant to purchase 7 brand new rifles, and free and clear. And it came with magazines and you know, a whole bunch of other accessories, slings to you know, drape them around us if we needed to help carry them and stuff like that. So we were really fortunate for that. Also, due to a very successful partnership with the Oregon State Police, they were giving away 650 of their tasers. And there's different models of tasers and whatnot. The tasers that they were giving away were called the Taser 7s. And those are right below the Taser 10s. The Taser 10s are the latest and greatest that are hot off the press and fresh out there in the market and whatnot. Well, Oregon State Police had their Taser 7s for only 2 years. And Axon, the company who produces these tasers, gave the state police an amazing opportunity to go to the Taser 10s and gave them a heck of a deal. And so Oregon State Police decided to gift their Taser 7s. And so they reached out to everybody who might need them. And we said, oh, us, please. And so we were able to acquire 9 of those. They gave us the tasers for free. There was some minimal cost though with that, as you could imagine. There was some a charging, you know, bank, some batteries that we needed to purchase on our own, some holsters and things of that nature. But all in all, a huge savings. And it was really awesome and important to be able to acquire those, because the current tasers that we have, what they call the X2, is nearly end of life and will you know, no longer be supported and stuff like that. And although it's equipment that we hopefully never ever have to use, we can rest assured that if called upon to where we do need to deploy, that our officers will hopefully be able to ensure their safety as well as the safety of the community by using that latest and greatest equipment and stuff like that too. So we're really pleased about that. It's really also helped modernize us. Like I say, those tools are very critical and things of that nature. So overall, I'll just finish up with saying that, you know, very blessed and proud of the team that we have of officers. They're just a great group of people, and we couldn't do what we do without them. And we're just really fortunate that they choose to serve here. And we really appreciate, you know, all their service and whatnot, especially during, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this is, you know, National Police Week as well. And so, we've been having a great week. The officers feel loved and appreciated by the community. There's been a lot of people that have reached out, just giving thanks and whatnot. And then of course, partners that are sharing goodies and snacks and all that good stuff too. But also, most importantly, I just want to highlight the extreme thanks and appreciation for those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, who have lost their lives in the line of duty and stuff like that. So anyways, we just want to say thank you very much for your continued partnership and your support. And we couldn't do it without you, and we appreciate you very much. I think that's about it. If there's any questions, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Did last year you were mentioning you were having some difficulty with some communication amongst yourselves when you're out on calls and stuff like that? Did you guys get that resolved?
Good memory, and thanks for bringing that up. We did. Thank you for that. Thanks to the support of council, mayor and council, and city administration and whatnot. We're moving in that direction and should be just a few weeks away actually to moving over to much better communication. you know, since we've taken over Aurora, there's even worse dead spots, if you will, there, where officers can't even get out on the radio and things of that nature. So we're really excited to be able to give them equipment that will be able to correct that, so.
So to elaborate on that, they have friendly radios when you switch over to Newcom from Metcom. That will allow them to have that better coverage.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Good memory.
Christmas presents, they're nice.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's very expensive, by the way. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. So are we looking at a flat then for the police department? No, because I'm looking for special needs. You know, last year we actually had additional for each department that kind of went over what their
Right.
asks were.
Yes, sir.
Is there any asks or are you just looking to keep it flat right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna look to keep it flat this next year. We, yeah.
Good. So we spoiled you enough last year.
Yes,
A lot
you
of-
did, you did. There were a couple asks, but.
Pretty tight on the budget.
Yes, sir. Right.
Good. That would have been my question. Yeah, because I remember usually and that's why you saw me flipping through the
Right.
page. I was trying to find the department report out on that. That's what they would like.
Right.
And I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Awesome. I do know you guys are doing a great job out there.
Thank you.
I heard from our superintendent, that Wes absolutely loved your guys' report on Monday, even though I don't think anyone was able to show up.
No, I unfortunately had a
Yeah, but
better.
they said they loved it.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
they
good.
nothing but praise for the police department, from the school district, Donald, same way. And you already know Aurora is very happy with what we provided so far.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much. It's a privilege for us to be able to serve.
Excited about the new officer too.
Yes, oh, yes, yes, me too. It looks very promising.
Yes.
So it'll be nice.
Okay, I guess it's me. Julie Hutton, city recorder and court supervisor. So I'll just give kind of a synopsis on the court. The municipal court primarily handles traffic citations along with smaller number of code enforcement matters. Court is held once per month, and one of our primary objectives is to promote compliance while also providing efficient and accessible service to the public. To support this goal, we offer both diversion opportunities and fix-it resolutions for qualifying violations. Our diversion program allows eligible defendants to complete a traffic safety class, pay the presumptive fine, and maintain a clean driving record for 6 months in exchange for dismissal of certain traffic citations. We also offer fix-it tickets options for violations such as failure to register a vehicle. And what that is they register their vehicle. It's a $50 fee and it goes all to the city and then it's dismissed. When it's, okay. Since the city began providing patrol services in Donald and Aurora, we have experienced a noticeable increase in citations, which has significantly lengthened our court sessions. Due to limited parking and courtroom capacity, staff worked collaboratively to develop a proactive solution. We created informational handouts that officers distribute at the time citations are issued. These handouts explain the diversion and fix-it programs and encourage individuals to contact the court prior to their scheduled appearance to determine eligibility and resolve matters early whenever possible. As a violations bureau, the court has authorized staff to process eligible diversion agreements and fix-it resolutions administratively. This has greatly improved efficiency, reduced the number of cases requiring formal court appearances, and eliminated the immediate need to add additional court days, despite the increased caseload. Additionally, with the inclusion of patrol services in Donald and the area's proximity to major truck stops, we have seen an increase in not guilty pleas and defendants retaining legal counsel, particularly individuals holding CDL licenses who are concerned about impacts to their commercial driving records. Overall, the efficiencies implemented by court staff have allowed us to manage increased workloads efficiently while continuing to provide quality public service. As a result, court revenues is currently approximately $4,000 above the amounted budget for this fiscal year.
No, I just want to make sure, so everyone on the budget committee is clear, is our court fees are going up next year. Because we do have an increase, so the judges, I think the first time in many, many years, had to basically double. It's not too bad, we can still handle that, I do know that.
Yes.
And part of it is working with our staff to try to mitigate those times and so forth by allowing us to do in-house administrative
Yeah.
processes to
And,
reduce.
and one of the things with our diversion program, why we're really high on that, is anytime there's a citation and it gets turned into DMV, you have to pay the state so much money, you pay the city so, or the county so much money. All the money comes to us. They have to pay the full fine. But if they go through diversion program, it's dismissed. And then the city retains all that money. So instead of, us getting $94 for a $265 ticket, we get $265. So that's been something that we really strive to do, and it also gets people compliant. We do it with insurance. And then, like speeding tickets, depending on if they do have to be eligible and stuff. They can't have a lot of tickets, within 3 years. They can't have 3 moving violations within 3 years, and it can't be distracted driving or cell phone tickets. We can't do diversion. That has to be on your record, just so everyone knows.
Hang up and drive, don't catch.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing is, although it is nice to hear that we do have increased revenue coming in, because that's a plus. I do want to point out that our policing services are not a revenue generator. We're not going out there and proactively ticketing drivers in Aurora, Donald, or Hubbard to generate revenue. That is a change from the police department from 10 years ago. And we try to be very careful not to, be overjoyed because, we get $4,000 plus or hopefully more even in the future. That's just a benefit of the additional policing, but we are truly trying not to be a revenue source for revenue or from ticketing.
So a number of years ago, when we had the payments
Mhm.
and that type of thing, and then all of a sudden the state said, wipe it off.
Yes. Remission order,
Have we had any of that this last year?
no. Yeah, we haven't had that for a while.
I didn't take a hit anywhere on that.
No. And one of the other things that by doing, the diversion programs, what I have noticed, we used to send a lot of things to collections. And when you suspend and collect, a lot of times you don't get paid on it, and after 10 years, we do have to write it off. When I talked to the people at the collections agency, they said that we send the lowest amount to collections. So we work really hard with payment plans, and that type of thing. We do what we can. We talk to people. And like I said, our biggest thing is just getting them compliant, getting them driver's license. We work with them, so they do get driver's license, so they do get insurance, which helps everyone, is a service to everyone, and that's the main goal.
What James just pointed out, there was, I think it was about a year ago, last year or a year before.
Yeah.
Like 11,000.
Twice, we had to do 2 remission orders, and it ended up being $50,000.
That's a lot.
When somebody does bad and they get fined and we're on a payment schedule, somehow the state said, well, that's not right to those people to make payments on something that they did wrong. So they forced the city to cancel. So for their actions, there was no repercussions.
Different.
So that's that thing that the governor does in December where she cancels all tickets?
Well, she hasn't.
Well, that was a couple of years ago. I
Yeah, it
think.
was a couple of years, Governor Brown did it, like, I think her last year in office, and then I believe COTEC did it for first year in office. And it hasn't been done since, but, they felt it was a hardship, and they just went through and took certain cases, and we just had to write them off. And they were, just clean the slate for them.
I'm pretty sure it was an unpopular move in municipalities. Because
Yeah,
I mean, if we were hit with 50,000, I'm sure the bigger.
yeah, I think the last time was the first year of Governor COTEC's.
So do we have any forecasted increases or needs coming in from the court side then, outside of knowing that the court fees are going up?
Yeah, the judge's fee did double, but that's the only thing that I see.
Bailiff's gonna stay the same?
Yeah, bailiff's gonna say the same, shouldn't be a problem. The interpreter, we do have an interpreter, she's saying the same, very reasonable.
We should plan for that potential, hey,
You know,
a 30-day notice, I'm going up.
I haven't Not that I know of, and one of the things we have been able to utilize, there have been times when the court interpreter has not been able to show up at the last minute. And we are very fortunate to have, Juan, who is bilingual, who has been able to come over and help us out in that capacity when, like I said, we're kind of stuck. And also, there have been times when the bailiff can't show up, and luckily we're fortunate. I just go to Dawn and say, I need one of the guys. And then, they'll be bailiff for me, which really helps out. We all kind of work together just to make things work.
It's a great thing about a small town.
Yes.
I don't know if this is probably not budget oriented, but when it comes to the interpreters, don't they have to meet certain qualifications
yeah, but it-
standards?
Yeah, but I can't cancel. We are able to use Juan in a pinch and stuff because we can't cancel. Otherwise, you don't know who's gonna need it. They come and show up and then you have to say we don't have someone, you have to go, and then they don't show up. So we're able to mitigate it that way. And it's extremely hard. You can't find court interpreters on the fly. You can't find them. A lot of them don't even come to courts anymore. They do it remote because they can, and I've been through this trying to find different ones, and they go, "If we make $100 an hour remotely, I'd spend all day at justice court. We aren't going to anything else." So if you want to get record.
Cheaper to hire one full-time on staff. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Julie. So I'll talk about Public Works first. Public Works Department in Hubbard manages the water system, the sewer system, streets, and the parks. So those are the main areas that Public Works is responsible for. The water system has 4 wells, 2 1 million gallon reservoirs. For a little while, we're still using the nice Hubbard water tower. That is what provides 42 pounds of pressure for everybody in town. Not a lot, but there it is. And we also have a whole distribution system from 10-inch pipes all the way down to 4-inch pipes, distributing water throughout town. Currently, we are doing a water system improvement project that will be installing boost pumps at the water plant. And that will basically retire the Hubbard water tower for water pressure. The water pressure is about nominal at about 58 PSI. We will probably ramp that up slowly. We don't know how the pipes are in town. That's a consideration. We don't want to have burst pipes in town or in people's homes. We are also replacing filters, medium, and we're also adding new filters. This is for capacity purposes. This project was originally designed and slated when we thought we would have a very large Bear Creek addition, in addition to a few other developments in town. Bear Creek's put off a little bit, but I'm sure at some point in the next few years, it will be ready to go, and we will be ready for it with this water system. Staff are required by law to watch over it several times a day. This is by monitoring testing of the chlorine levels that we put into it, and also periodically doing hydrant flushes throughout town, valve exercising, going through every valve. There's about 250 valves throughout town that all have to be exercised or by moving them in different directions so they don't freeze up. The spare capacity, if you will, is if anything breaks or we have to maintain it, such as pipe bursts, those type of things. I will knock on plastic. That hasn't happened in a short while, but when it does happen, it's all hands on deck. So your personnel are out there, even if they're not on call, to help with those kind of activities. The 4 wells are located, we have it at Rivinus Park. We have it right here at the water tower, and we have one that we call well 4, which is the very south, 1 million gallon reservoir, just south of J Street, and then one on 2nd Street, which is our main plant. So those are those main assets of a water system. The wastewater system also has a very large grant, and when we have been told by our congressional representatives that some asks that were made for what could be about $2 million to $3 million for phase 3 and phase 4 of this construction is now being put in the pipeline for approval. So we might see some money from that next year, assuming that Congress can get their budget together. So that's an asterisk there, but the good news is that our representatives are moving that along for us. So the main part of our wastewater system is the plant itself at 3707 Sunset. And essentially what that has is what we call a lift station. Then it goes into what we call a head screen. Then we have a clarifier, and then we go through some digesters. Finally, it goes to a polish clarifier through UV lights and out to Mill Creek. We use both aerobic and some anaerobic digestion. Basically, we have little microbes in there that eat everything. And when it's done, it basically is not pure water, but it is basically all but disinfected before it goes into the creek, and it's clear when it goes in. The waste, what's left over, the sludge, if you will, we basically put it through a new piece of equipment that was purchased through this grant, initial grant. And what it does essentially is called a screw press. And what it does is basically gets rid of all the water, and the rest of it comes out kind of looks like compost. There's no odor to it or anything, and it gets hauled away by Republic Services a few times a month. So the most critical parts of the wastewater is the lift station itself. This is where all the collection, we have a gravity collection system for most of the town. We have a remote station at the south of town, which pumps it through what we call a force main up to the main sewer system. It gets collected. We have pumps that come on routinely as the water level comes up, pumps bring it down. It goes into what we call a head-end system, which then screens it for anything large. Then it goes into this very, very large round 60-foot diameter tank, which is where we put air into it. And then we also circulate it. And this is where the magic happens. And then the staff have to go through a process of what we call decanting, which is taking the clear water from below and moving it back into the system. And also wasting, which is where we take the residue and move it back down. This is not automatic. It takes very, very skilled operators to maintain the system at all times. There's testing done twice a week in our own laboratory that we have here. And again, this is very skilled operations. What we're looking for is everything balanced? Are the bugs doing what they're supposed to be doing? And then we have to operate the screw press. We have to manually move water from one part to another. And so that is the one operation where it's a water plant is a little bit more automatic. The wastewater plant is very much labor intensive and also knowledge intensive to make sure that it stays where it's at. The folks do a great job at it, but it is one of those things that if you want to look at the cost, that is probably the most costliest activity that Public Works does for the city. The streets, for the most part, is sweeping them with street sweeper, and we also patch. We get lots of Easy Street from where it's made up in north of us here, and we go around and patch things. So that's mostly what we do. The street sweeping is important, though. There's another side to that. We have to deal with something. We have to manage something. I don't want to call the DEQ dealing with, but manage something called the TMDL, or the total maximum daily load. And this is a report that all cities have to do. And what it's basically saying is dealing with our stormwater and street cleaning, although that is an expensive operation, is one of those things that is highly recommended, if not mandated, in our reports for ensuring that our streets are clear of debris, garbage, leaves, anything that can get in the stormwater system and pollute the water as it moves into Mill Creek. So another expense, but all cities have to do it, so it's not just something Public Works does here. The last part of this is our parks. That is the jewels of the city, no doubt. It's what drew me when I first came to Hubbard. The parks were what drew me here. That's just really nice. And staff spend a great deal of time mowing, making sure that things are taken care of in terms of pesticides, trimming, clipping, making sure the paths are in good shape, making sure the playground equipment's in good shape. That really, if you've got to go once the technical side of wastewater, the rest of the staff is working on parks. That's really what we do, what we spend our time, and where a lot of energy and money is spent in terms of taking care of things. The remainder of Public Works is the administration part. And the administration part is we have to manage backflow connections throughout town. That's called, we call cross connections. This is making sure that water irrigation systems do not re-enter the public system, the public water system. That's also required and mandated. We also have to do monthly reports for our wastewater system. So our foreman, who's also our direct responsible charge, has to submit a report electronically to the DEQ each month for all the parameters that you might guess go into operating a water system or a wastewater system. And it's a double screen spreadsheet that has to be entered and moved in to the DEQ, along with all the required tests that have to be done for nitrogen, ammonia, etc. That we have to report on. Those are all very regulated, meaning in the reporting system that's used, if you have a parameter that is out of what would they call the maximum contaminant level, or MCL, what will happen is that you will get fined immediately. It's computerized. So we do a lot of testing all the time to make sure that we are always within the parameters that our permit allows us to have. So administratively, we deal with all of that. And of course, with managing the overall, our fleets, our equipment, all the different things that go into the tools that our staff have to use. Last, there are some things that are more interesting to us, and I think the public really likes, which is like our splash fountain. We just finished working on that today, which is we have a 5,000 gallon tank that has to be entered. It's called confined space, cleaned and put back in operation. It did its first test today, so it looks like the splash fountain is ready to go for Memorial Day. During the summer, we have to have people here at all times, and every 4 hours, the chlorine levels have to be tested while it's in operation. So that's another scheduling configuration that we have to do to make sure that we, at the same time, have to meet the regulatory and safety requirements for our citizens and OHA. At the same time, we want to come up with systems that allow the maximum use, the most efficient use of staff, so we're not always having overtime and comp time and that type of things that goes with it. So there's a lot of juggling administratively to make sure that all this is taken care of. So that's Public Works in a nutshell. There's never a dull day in Public Works, ever. And every day brings excitement. Some of it wonderful, some of it not so wonderful. But we deal with it, and that's what the staff do, day in and day out. And they work, there's always a staff person working every day of the week. There's not one day that does not have one staff person in town doing something, and one person who's on call after hours to take care of it. So we have 6.5 people, 6.5 FTE. The 0.5 is Toby, who, if you see going around town, if that mower's going, Toby's on it, and he's keeping that grass nice and mowed throughout everything. He's also seasonal. He's only here for 6 months out of the year. In administration, which is the last piece, so we have in our general, that's our general fund, and that's what we work with. So we have court, which is kind of separated out, parks, which is also part of this general fund, which is separated out, and the police department, which is also part of that as well. The remainder of that really is the planning pieces, community economic development pieces, Our accounting pieces, making sure that our grants and our loans and our checks and all those are being taken care of. And so that's the last administrative piece, and that's really taken care of by the city administrator. We have a half-time accountant. We have Julie, who does the city recorder and the court. So her function is make sure that all this wonderful paper gets taken care of. Things are posted online, calls are received, and routed to the right people, all those things. That's what Julie and Megan, who's also the billing clerk. And so you have utility billing that's another big function because people are always coming in to pay water bills. We have to send letters out, we have to turn water off, turn water back on. It's just an amazing combination of folks that do this work to keep the city functioning and running on a daily basis. So that's the overview of our entire system of what this budget really does is pay for all those services, police, court, public works, our parks. That's really what we're doing with all this. Are there any questions?
Is there a wish list for
Public works?
no cranes?
Oh, that's a wish list.
Oh, there's a wish list. However, I told them no. The wish list is always automobiles.
New trucks.
New trucks. And yes, we have a few trucks that are not in great shape. But you know, $100 radiator works. I do have a staff person right now who is adept at fixing things and doing it very quickly and professionally. And I wish to take advantage of that for right now. So I want to keep public works flat. The biggest thing I have in public works is I want to make sure that we have the tools to do our job. But I also want to make sure that we are working efficiently with that. A lot of my activity in the first few months that I was here was basically looking at our staffing schedules and making sure that they were more efficient. And when I did that, I found out that a lot of things that were needed really weren't needed. They were needed because of how people have always done things. Public Works is one of those organizations that relies on the muscle memory of not only its own organization, but every public works organization that they've ever come from. Things are always kind of done the same way. And so if you look at it differently, sometimes you can come up with better things. And I think right now, staff for this coming fiscal year, I think staff are looking at it from how can we do things better, more efficiently? What can we do? What do I need now to do my job? But what don't I need? One of the things we don't need are more trucks for the moment. We don't need that. If we do, maybe we should look at something different, like a UTV. Do you need a Chevy Silverado to get into your parks? Can't do it. But you could take a UTV in there with nice, now I'm not talking about a golf cart, but one that can carry something. You can put your tools, your equipment and all that. That you can go. And is that more efficient? So that's what we're looking at, is how can we maintain efficiencies? I'm looking at things like a program. It's not just a software program, a program where our backflow connections do not have to necessarily go to our project manager. Because right now she spends a good 1/3 of her time managing backflow connections. Yet there's a program out there that will basically take care of that for us. So those are the kinds of things this year that I want to look at, not the kinds of things that we need. Let's fix what we have, maintain our assets. At the same time, let's look at how we can make things better for ourselves and more efficient. We have a lot of grant money coming in, a lot of big projects over the next 3 years. Let's get those in place and see what we need after that. Not what we absolutely have to have right now. What Public Works wants is not necessarily what they need, as we tell ourselves and our kids and everything else.
Well, as budget members, you two, me, we don't hear everything that the council does. I really like what I'm hearing. I'm thinking it sounds like we're being much more fiscally responsible than we ever have. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question was, so we're going from a gravity fed system for our water pressure
Yes,
to a pump system. Are those pumps then gonna be on backup power generator?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A very large Peterson cat is gonna go in place of the one we currently have.
Okay,
There's automation and failback on it. There's several failback pumps on it as well. In addition to automation, that if it goes bad, we can go manual. That was one of my requirements.
Like a bike hooked up and they just.
Well, the problem was I was gonna have Mike do that. Mike just had, we had one of our members that had knee surgeries. I gave him a bad time. I said, it was good exercise. But we do have a manual mode on as well, so we can actually start the pumps and make sure that, we have electric. And it's a very brand new backup generator on this.
That you started this, what, about 2 years ago, 3 years ago? The
3
whole
years.
started
Right.
going on and having these pumps stationed, because we're at 40 pounds or something.
Pretty well.
Pretty low.
Yeah.
Yeah, 38 to 42.
When they bring it
That's the
up,
good part.
when they bring it up to 50, and then we see anything breaks, bring it up to 55, 60 until they get it set. If nothing breaks, we're all doing well, and we'll have enough that you can shower and flush the roads.
And water your lawn.
The system is designed for 58 to 62 PSI, 62 probably when it is less demand, 58 at high demand. It was designed to pump 58 PSI at maximum. So there will be water pressure.
And it's still moving forward. This whole
Yes.
project is.
It is, as a matter of fact, as we speak, we just moved out of the intent to award to award. So now I need to move this to, I now need to move this to council for approval and to move forward. But this is the construction phase of the water. It's actually taking the pieces. We have everything in storage. It's now going to be moved in place. Our foreman, Mike, has been working very hard on making sure there's a cutover plan. And he has answers for the contractors, so they're not wasting time with change orders. That's the most expensive part of projects. Trying to minimize, my goal is 0 changeovers. That's optimistic, or change orders, excuse me, but they cost us money, and this is, right now in our budget, we're right on the line with this. So I want to get it done. The citizens have waited a long time.
Nice, it's exciting to hear.
So, just have a question. We got that, storm drain over on Castile.
Yes,
Are we looking at doing that this summer on our current budget, or are we looking at trying to spread it over a couple of budgets, or where are we at on that? So you got a plug.
thank you. That's a great question. And,
Oh,
so we have this project, we call it the MOLA project on the 88 units over where the Hotelco property is. MOLA, because that's where the parties in the, the business in the front and the party in the back, this, it was businesses on the bottom and they have 88 units. So I've been talking with their engineers and the report came back that they're really, for the amount of impervious space that development is going to have, ODOT doesn't have enough capacity in their storm trims up front. And we've told them, no, you cannot use Castile Street because each year when it floods, the poor park down there, they're calling the Coast Guard, literally. They want rafts and things. That's one of my calls. You have a raft that can help me with this? And Castile Street, right in the middle, floods. Now, I've heard all sorts of anecdotal things, but I believe we have a broken pipe, a clog, or something else down there. So I've been talking with the developer himself, the owner of this thing, and they are, the ask from me is, would you help us scope that thing to figure out exactly what the problem is? And do that, and that would be done very soon, not waiting for summertime. So that's where we're at. We're gonna get someone to do it for us. And if we can fix it, we might, and if they want to go forward, we can use such mechanisms as SDC credits. They're gonna owe us a lot of money in development charges. We can give them a credit if they want to help fix whatever we find down there. So there's no money out of our budget.
All right, so that helps out a lot. So that doesn't cost us money out of our
Right,
budget, just the SDCs for the fixing, and we're hoping to get that scope done soon.
Yes, the scope is, that is critical.
Well, the only thing I will point out, let's say the Patelco project.
Mhm.
Yes.
If it doesn't go through, we're still gonna have to fix that. It's a known clog. We've already had issues in the past where our drain lines back up. And I don't want it backing up into the mobile home park and causing structural damage or something else to something.
That's
Unreliable.
how much money last time, right now.
Right.
Right.
We need to stay ahead of it. So, I mean, one of the things I have asked Steve to do as well is to see if we've got any place else, right? Right. We find these things out in piecemeal. It'd be better to know sooner rather than later. So we can, as Steve was saying, budget for it
Yes,
and think about how can we address the areas that have been neglected.
Yeah, I know it's been quite a few years, probably better than 15 years ago, but, Jamie was here at the time. And we had all our pipe scoped and they sealed a bunch of the leaks and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's something we can look at putting in the budget sometime.
I completely
Later.
concur.
Yeah.
Not only that, we don't even know where all of our lines are. Jamie did a lot, Mike did some. There's lots of different phases, actually phase 1, 2, and 3 of different stormwater master plans.
Well, I know one time we had somebody that actually ran scopes and they
That would
did
be great.
sealant work. I don't know where that paperwork is at.
Yeah.
Might be one of those file cabinets in there or.
I'm gonna bet it's in a file cabinet, probably at the water plant.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that was the water delivery, not the drains. We were fixing leaks throughout the system, prepping for the increased water pressure.
Well, this is when Jamie was here.
Yeah, it would have been a long time ago. But the one we just did not too long ago, yeah, they were checking for leaks and everything else.
I think these are your drains, I believe.
He did, and he also, they developed the whole,
Find those plans for
they did build a whole set of plans, and I found them. The next part is that Mike said, well, I think that they were scoped as well, and you're confirming that.
the.
So I think that's worthy of diving a little bit and finding what they found.
So that might help figure out how many miles and where they're at,
Right,
the pipe we have.
yes, and that's critical because these developers come in, stormwater's big. I mean, the DEQ really, really, really makes us work. I mean, that's probably the hardest to do is getting the stormwater approvals for this. Very extensive engineering calculations that they have to be done. And if we can't accommodate it, then a development can't go in, and that's hurting our economic development.
Which is a big deal, not that economic development's a big deal, but the stormwater is a big deal. Anyone that's been here more than 10 years remembers what happened when the storage area was built and we ended up flooding the neighbor's area. Found out later it's because a culvert wasn't properly dug underneath the railroad tracks and the drain fields weren't there, but still. We need to be very cautious about that, and Public Works is well aware of it.
We are, and developing those
Yeah,
plans.
and a lot of stuff has been put in since we did that. The storage area units are one prime example of large construction. and stuff.
Well, it doesn't take too long to have a clog build up either.
Yeah.
If it was done underneath Jamie probably 10 or 12 years ago.
Or more.
Yeah, I don't know what caused the clog that caused the backup along Fifth Street. I don't know if it was a grease clog or what. But if people are dropping down grease or whatever might be down pipes, of course, that's not a storm drain, that's.
As a sewer, and it was grease.
Well, yeah, and I tell people, don't do that, please. Wreaks havoc on our little pipes going underneath the streets, like grease doesn't go anywhere, it just.
Settles and clogs.
So you
Like
adjusted
black.
water. Is the sewer project still going through also?
Yes.
Cooling
simultaneous.
pond? That type of thing?
So what that's a great question, because part of this, we have to deal with the cooling. We have what they call a thermal load issue with Mill Creek. As I explained the other night, the DEQ used standard creek calculations, but not of Mill Creek. And so what they decided is that, and I'll just break it down into temperatures, it's a little easier to understand, but it's about 2.5, 3 degrees warmer, what they say that we're putting into it, than what Mill Creek is between May and November. Now, we do take temperatures of that daily, we're required to, upstream from where our effluent goes in. We have also tested our influent, and our influent is cooler than the water is in the summertime in Mill Creek, because essentially upstream of Mill Creek, basically it almost dries out. Our effluent is one of the primary drivers of Mill Creek in the summertime. So there's a lot of standard calculations that DEQ has, but they've never come down and actually done a site survey for Mill Creek. Working with the DEQ is problematic because they are essentially environmental scientists and they have their own ways of doing things. But I also believe that we can show that our thermal loading is not nearly as great as what they calculated with their standard non-on-site temperature calculations that they use. However, what can we do? Some things we can do is put concrete pipe into our flat area down there and run our effluent through that. That will cool it about 1.5 degrees, actually by calculations. There's something else called thermal trading. Bit controversial, but the DEQ does allow the cities to engage in planting shrubbery downstream that is supposed to mitigate that, assuming you get permission from the private landowners and everything else. But that's a 20-year ongoing cost, expensive. There are chillers you can purchase and put in place, but that's mechanical, that's going to be more expensive. You can put wells in and actually pump from one well on site, go through tubing, drop your effluent. We have a very large tank, basically, that goes about 12 feet down that we used to be for the coring, but basically it just cascades down now and goes out. We can put it over pipes and do it that way. There's lots of different solutions, and that's one of the things that we're to use part of our grant money that we're receiving. We actually, part of it was allocated to this to make sure that we come up with some kind of solution. But the initial idea from the engineers was simply to engage in thermal trading. Staff and myself and other consultants that we've talked to leave us other solutions that will.
That's buying the way out of
Basically, you did
it.
that.
So we don't need any worry about this budget
No.
coming back in 6 months saying, well, we need another X amount.
X, what? No, at this point in the budget, the biggest thing we have, and we have set aside in our contingencies is on the main clarifier, the one I was talking about that has all the bubbling in there. The main arm on that sits on a center bearing that's 50 years old at this point and is basically corroded out. Now, staff have come up with some very, very inventive things that we thought we would have to pull that and replace it, but they simply took a broom, polypropylene broom, attached it to the center arm, which is where the issues and problems are, and made it work so it scrapes the whole thing without us having to be on the center piece, which is what we had before, and move it and then use manual brushes. So staff came up with a really good solution, which is what Public Works does. And actually and I'm going to back up 1 second. This clarifier was modified in 2005. It was just one big circle. It was divided up like a pie into 3 sections. And so the original equipment that's on there does not work the way it was originally intended. It was modified. So the outside piece is actually what they call a traveling bridge. It's a walkway, and it actually moves around the outside perimeter. Before, it had some things on like aerators and things moving to move material around. It's called a counterflow system. That's not working anymore. In 2005, they took that out of service. The only purpose of this bridge went in was for staff to rotate around with it and clean the sides of the chambers. Well, that broke too. They had a motor burnout. Center bearing is not working the way it's supposed to be. So that was $185,000 to fix this. Staff came up with a $12 broom and attached it on a thing to the outside arm. And it's working great. I mean, it's doing exactly what we need to. If you don't do that, the E. coli on the bottom end that we're required to test for on our effluent start to increase. We typically have 8 E. coli in any given sample. It was growing to 40, 50, 60. 126 in a daily is our limit. 423 in a month. So that's this one little broom fixed the problem. So very confident going forward that we can make that work for a lot less than what we asked for.
Outstanding.
And the other part of it is from my end of it is I just want folks we need to be maintaining what we have. And so in the budget, when I budgeted this year, I'm putting very proactive preventive and maintenance program, very similar to what the Navy and the Coast Guard background, very similar to what we used in our aviation. And so each piece of equipment has a card to it. Each card has instructions for what to do, and there's a time and frequency, and Molly, our coordinator, will be managing that and handing those out. So we need to do fan belts, grease things, take care of it. It'll all be on a routine basis, so we're not going 15 years without doing anything like that. So that, so you asked, what's the ask for this year? I really want to see how this program works, because I believe it will flatten those extraneous costs. Will we need some replacement vehicles at some point? Yeah, we will, as well as our police department. That's the other part of administration. Their fleet needs to be looked at as well. So we do have those issues, but not right this second.
All the years we've been doing this, it just doesn't sound right.
I know you got all keyed up to say no truck.
No, the other vehicles, because the prices going up the way we are.
Yes.
Economics makes a huge difference.
It does.
You need something, I mean, just balancing the cost of gas, how much you're using in a bigger vehicle versus a smaller one. It's, I don't know, it's going to come out. The smaller
Yes.
vehicles.
We used to do that back when I was in the service. You want to pick up, because you can haul just about anything you want to pick up, but it costs, $30,000-$40,000, maybe more. But you can buy these little go-kart things for around $5,000, and it would haul just about 98% of what you would normally haul on a daily basis anyway. You only needed one truck instead of a dozen trucks. Because, and similar type idea there with the public works vehicles. I mean, if you gotta have one or two pickups to haul bigger stuff, and in the meantime, run around town
And a small one.
little ATV.
So right now we have 3 vehicles. We have two vehicles, trucks, and our hoist vehicle. The idea this year is to attempt to sell those, and then purchase one of those smaller vehicles. So basically try to make it a wash. I don't know who's going to get it. I think I have an idea. But it's one of those, our public works folks, and this is not just Hubbard, it's everywhere, love their vehicles. I joked at one time about putting their names on each one in gold leaf. They looked at me like, when? That way you're not getting what I'm saying. We do need a big truck to haul things with. That's the big one. We have a 350. We do have a 1,500, 2,500. Yeah, but we need those, no doubt. We have some big things around town that have needed it. The other 2 trucks, do we really need to have a 2004 truck with an check engine light on? No. What we really do need is a UTV. Because that's what that truck's being used for, is go around to the parks.
And I'll just add on the note of vehicles with respect to the police department, we have 6 vehicles, soon we'll have 7 officers. And the plan is to deploy our bicycle here soon.
Nice.
And so look for me out on that. Yeah.
That's cool.
So, yeah, so.
I'm looking over the-
Look for me on that
Good you
bike.
are. Get right in front of you and go, watch me speed. No, I'm actually glad to hear that. And
Yeah.
hopefully we can take the bikes and even have a bike patrol over in Donald or even in Omaha.
Exactly. Well said, yeah.
We have 4.
Yeah.
I know we have 2 here and 2 over on well 4.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
There's no lights on.
You know what? I think a couple of them do that. I saw in the shops here on First Street. I think they do still have lights. Yeah.
They should have lights, saddlebags.
Right.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Should get out in time for Hop Festival.
Yes, yes.
Well, that'd be cool. I can have a big parade.
Hey, there you go. That's a great idea. Okay, all right.
Full gear.
That's right. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Shorts are approved.
Yeah.
Shorts, yeah.
Yeah. Not only knees out.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
Comcast Country Town,
Yes.
and they were busting through sewer lines. And I personally know because it happened to me, and Techstar wound up paying for the scope to go through and found out it wasn't on my property, it was actually in the street. And, how many more lines do we know of that haven't been fixed yet from when Comcast busted through?
I spoke with staff about this because that was one of their decisions to go on. To their understanding, they have been fixed.
And we found all the sewer lines.
And we found them, and we now do a much, I won't say better job, but maybe a more thorough job of marking the lines and being aware. So when they come in for what we call a road permit, a right-of-way permit, the practice right now is that I look at it to make sure to see who's doing it, and if it's Comcast, if they're doing what they call horizontal drilling, then we go out and we not just look at our lines, but we also look at where they intend from their diagrams on starting the bore. And that's where the problem was. We mark it, but we wouldn't mark areas that we knew where they were starting to go hit our pipes.
My problem is that mine goes from the house to the center of the street, all the way down here. And they thought my line was switched to go to this one over here that went to Walnut Court.
There, right?
And I think I'm the only one on that one that goes down there.
And that's frustrating when it's under the street. It should have just gone to, it should have followed the property line and gone over, but they put it in the middle of the street, thinking, oh, now what are we gonna do?
Well, my house was built before they did.
Oh, they did, okay.
So this was an after fact. And the other question I have is that on J Street, I have like 2 bumps there. How much road traffic actually shifts the lines underneath? Because I've got 2 constant dips. They fix it and they're back. And how is that affecting the lines underneath with the truck traffic? Because it vibrates my house.
It
If
does.
it's vibrating my house, it's gotta be vibrating the lines down
The
there.
lines at that end of town are about 5.5, 60, I think it goes between, I'm gonna say 72 inches down for the water lines,
Okay,
6 feet.
yeah, they dug pretty deep. when
Yeah,
had
they
to
dug
fix the
really
hole.
deep down that end. Sewers are a little higher than that simply because it's gravity fed. So I think those right at J Street are more along 60 inches
Mm.
down. I would actually be more concerned, and it depends on the pipe. I think J Street and that area is cast iron.
But what does the truck traffic, because it's hitting the dips and it goes thump, 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 thump. And it's all the heavy vehicles. I'm just wondering, we got a little mini earthquake going on from thump, thump.
Oh, or when the fully loaded southbound train comes through.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the whole
Yeah.
house vibrates.
Yeah, they're fully loaded southbound, empties northbound usually. That it is problematic.
Is that something that actually happens? Does it shift the pipes and move things to where they crack, especially the old pipes?
The old ones, if it's what we call asbestos concrete, the AC pipes, yes, they're brittle and they will crack.
How many of those do we have in the town that we would have to
Hold on.
replace?
So,
Go ahead.
I'm gonna have to call a point of order.
Okay, well, how many we have to replace, because that's a future budget thing.
Yeah, we haven't identified anything yet, but I would say, those are great questions, and
Yeah.
please follow up with Steve, but
Okay.
in the essence of time,
Okay.
we've got a lot to still go.
Actually, we do have, because of the last work we did with the grant, the water distribution system, we do know where those have been identified.
Right,
And
and
most of them are in the center of town, not on the south part of town.
And just to follow up very quickly with Comcast, there was an issue that we found later on with the way they were pulling right-of-way permits that wasn't being done properly. We've corrected that, so if they ever get busted in the future, anyone coming in, they're gonna be paying for it.
Yeah, there's liability and we make sure that's taken.
I do have a quick question as far as, I know vehicles, obviously public works we can sell and buy. The police department, I thought we need to figure out some kind of a replacement program and we need to be proactive on that. Is that not getting started in this budget?
That's something to be, I would say that that's an administrative or an operational decision that we will do. There was some money set aside, I understand $100,000 for vehicle replacement. And I think that's a discussion of how best to use that money to start putting those in place. There are a couple different ways of doing that. One is a lease. Some cities have done leases for part of their fleet and then make sure that every few years, they buy it back for $1 at the end of 4 years. But at the same time, then they put the next set of vehicles. So now, instead of all your vehicles aging at one time, you're replacing them in segments. And I think that's one of the things that the police chief and I have discussed. And the same with Public Works, to do it along that line.
Do we do have something in the budget though to start replacing vehicles?
I believe that in one of our reserve funds, and I'll have to take a look, see exactly where Sean set that aside, but she did tell me she set aside $100,000 in one of our reserves to make sure that we could,
Is that contingency?
No,
no.
contingency would be for emergency, reserve would be a reserve fund, specifically
fund,
for
yeah.
purpose, in this case. Police vehicles.
I just know that.
Oh,
So
Yeah,
right,
there should be a reserve,
yeah, there is, it's, you can see all funds, we have our ending fund reserves and ending fund balances are about $863, $509.
I mean, I'd love to see a grant for like the rifles or like the tasers, but until we find one that gives us free vehicles.
that's not gonna.
Just to make sure
Exactly.
we have that taken care of.
We're gonna have to look at probably options of financing as well as leveraging what funds we have. But the idea is not to have all the vehicles purchased new at once, to start staging and offsetting. So we don't have the situation of having to spend $230,000 on vehicles every, 5 years.
Right, what we did 8 years ago was basically lease to purchase at the end of the day, we leased them and then.
Yeah, I guess the 87 arrangement.
Well, thank you, department heads, for that insight. Well done. Budget review and discussion.
All right. All right, so I'm gonna, this is our basic review of all the numbers you see before you here today. So we do have a balanced budget of $15.6 million. You can see in our budget where we have the money that is most spent. Let's see if I can get down here to my one little numbers here. But essentially, you can see where we have our grants and where we have most of our money is not in the operations pieces. We just simply do not have a lot of money in operations. What we do have is monies that are coming out of our grants, which is probably our biggest, and that's going to be spent down. That's not something that we, it's not really money available to the city for operations. It's for the grants. And we also, if you look at our major monies that we have basically $6 million with our beginning fund balances and $4 million in grants and other things. And so essentially you are having very little in between for operations. So that's not the biggest part of the budget, in other words. So we have some budget assumptions associated with this. On a revenue side, we assume that we're going to collect about $1,160,000 on this. We're going to collect $260,000 in fees and permits. Charges for services that we have, this is really with your police department in particular, is $1,400,000. Intergovernmental revenue, for the most part, is also what we call our shared revenue expenses. We get money from the liquor taxes, marijuana taxes, street fund gets transportation, those type of things that we put inside of those. That's also part of the IGAs we have with Aurora and Donald are in that bucket. Our grant and loan resources, which is your $4 million. Fines and fees that we collect is we're budgeting at $411,000. And there's also an assumption that, and we've done this, but it's just up there just a reminder that the Aurora Police Services contract does offset one of our FTEs fully in our police department. For expenditures and staffing, our net general fund staffing increased by 1.5 FTE total. That's a police officer plus half-time an accounting person. We have the 0.5, well, they explains it right below. And otherwise, we have, general fund materials and services reductions, which have been largely enhanced short-term saving which have largely exhausted short-term savings opportunities. What we're saying is that we've gone through as much as we possibly can at this point, and we've cut our expenses down to what we believe is minimal in our budget process. This is both from Sean's previous city administrators, and since a large part of our budget is public works, we work together on making as conservative as we possibly could. And our capital outlays, which is the $4 million, remains largely driven by our major water, sewer, and parks projects. I think that's important because of that $15 million. It looks great, looks big, but 4 million of that is really just for our projects. It's not available to us for our general use. Our revenue snapshot. We get nice property taxes, we get lots of shared revenue, we have grants, we get fines and fees, and we have transfers. So the transfers is what we essentially take from our water system, our sewer system, and streets, and we transfer that back to general administration to make sure that our administration is a shared cost. Clearly, the city administrator and we have our utility billing staff work on behalf of the water and sewer system. There's general management and funds and projects that are happened by the city administrator. We're allowed to take a portion of that. It's usually by a percentage of staff time and FTE, and to help offset that. So you be our bidding fund balance is about 44.5% of total resources. I'll stop a moment. Beginning fund balances. Each year, we start off with a bunch of money, what we call our big piggy bank. Most of that is, some of it's in our checking account, a lot of it's in local government investment pool, or LGIP. This is where it earns interest on our behalf, and that interest comes back into our system. And with $15 million, we do earn substantial interest, and that goes back into the departments based upon their fund sizes. So the beginning fund balance is when you see a structural deficit. What you're really doing is year by year reducing that beginning fund balance. And of course, you want to keep some beginning fund balance because we don't get property taxes until November. So from July, August, September, and October, we have to run on that beginning fund balance that's in there before it gets replenished, if you will, with our property taxes. So when it says it's almost half of that, what it means is that we really, at this point, I'll say that we're okay, we're comfortable with what we have. But as you can see from the charts, as the years go on, it becomes more problematic, which is why the structural differences, imbalances within the individual funds we need to work on that. And that's part of the financial planning process. I'll let the little bullet points there reemphasize that we are balanced. Major development is important if we're going to, and I say it's balance. And what I mean by balance is it's not just about bringing in new residences. Residences, when you bring them into the system, tend to cost more than they actually bring in. In other words, if we brought in 300 homes down in Bear Creek, it's not just a part of a police officer that's going to take care of it. It's going to be more than that. So they're funding down there because you simply have to have more folks, you have to have rotation, you have to have shifts. Same with public works. It's going to cost more. So that's why you balance it with business and industry at the same time. And that's part of the total economic development picture. Talk about grants. Okay, so our expenditures of all funds. You can see what we have, what was amended for this year versus what we're projecting. That's in yellow. So you can see that in the black pieces, the black bars, is what we are currently working with as we speak right now. What we're budgeting for is in the yellow. So we do have some differences in what we're attempting to budget in terms of our expenditure trends. We are reducing overall. The capital outlay in particular, the large one there, it's reduced simply because we're expending the funds on buying services, construction costs. We're using the grants as their intent to be. And we are increasing a little bit in our supplies and materials. They have gone up in price, and so that is what you're seeing overall. Otherwise, it's a very conservative budget. We do have an operating fund deficit, and you can see that in the red. It is not huge. It's about $208,000, but that's in our general fund. This is the fund that funds our police, courts, city, part of the city administrator, our utility billing, our courts, and our parks. The intent, I think, this evening is not to solve why that is necessarily, but also to recognize that that is an issue that will have to be dealt with through how we normally work with this, as we essentially cut back on some things, services, and some of our supplies and materials as you move through. And because this is very conservative, we're not accounting for maybe more people using the parks, more revenue being brought in from other areas as well. So it's minimal, but it is a reality for the general fund.
Plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Yes, and this is part of the planning process. Let's say the bottom, the corrective options are, revenue growth. Look at our fees. We aren't charging a lot for our fees, by the way, overall. As an example, we were charging $45 for Comcast and utility poles. Well, when you look at the ordinance, it's $100. So all of a sudden, my fees and revenue now are like about $4,000 or $5,000 more than budgeted, simply because we're getting more revenue in. So the idea with this is this was just simply taking it out of the ordinance, making it passed by resolution, and updating a master fee schedule. So that's really, we got a huge amount of money just by administratively changing something and recognizing where the revenue is. So that's part of it too. It's just finding where we can, make sure that our costs, what we're charging, is actually covering our costs. So this chart, and I always try to make things as large as I can in PowerPoint, the larger fonts, so I can read the darn things. But what this is basically saying is our operating fund pressures, so you can see the red, we do have pressure on each of these areas because of the rising costs, particularly in materials and services. PGE loves raising the costs. Our insurance costs keep going up each year. Republic Services has raised their prices. I'm just getting now what this next year, they're saying stay tuned for the insurance costs for our property and assets, as well as the insurance costs for our medical benefits. They're not telling me what they normally don't tell you until 1st of June. Then they raise it again July 1st once you made your budget, once you passed your budget. That's the tricks. I don't understand it, but that's how they do it. We did make a good guesstimate though this year for CIS and our insurance, but we'll see. This is an overview of our contingencies. Contingency is what we set aside. It cannot be used except by council resolution, but we set this aside to make sure that if there's anything unusual, unexplained, unanticipated that comes up, we have some money set aside to take care of it. Because once you pass the budget, if we have any amounts of money that are not allocated at the very end, that's what balances it. That's not touchable until the next budget. So the contingency you can touch if the council approves it, but the unallocated we cannot touch until the next budget cycle comes up. You can't even do it with a supplemental budget. So this is part of the budgeting magic, I guess, if you will, is to make sure that you do have enough of contingency to ensure that you can make sure that your year is uneventful. In this case, between all funds, we have a little over $3 million that we've set aside. And I think that and general fund contingencies about $1,500,000. And I think that that's adequate. Again, that's conservative. That's not that we're spending it. It's just simply what we've set aside in case breaking emergency break glass.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is that 4 months you were talking about last time? You have to have at least 4 months of operating costs always in the budget.
Always in the budget
Is
at the
that
beginning. Yeah,
contingency?
the contingency actually is even separate. The contingency comes from your beginning fund balances. So, excuse me, that first 4 months comes from your beginning fund balance. So the rule of thumb is always have 4 months of your total operating costs in your beginning fund balances. Truthfully, you want about a year in there, if not more. That is your bank account. That is what we have in our cash in our accounts, our checking account, and what's in LGRP. That's what the combined of that is. And so we will reduce that. And you won't see the beginning fund balance reduce, but you'll see that your expenses as they go through. And then when the property taxes come back in, that rebalances the budget. You won't see that except on your month. The council sees that in what they call the month-to-month report. They'll see that reduction. And this is essentially going down to your, basically, this is in the details of the budget here. We get into our snapshot. This is what our general fund essentially looks like. Our property taxes is really the red piece down there. Materials and service, I should say. And Chief Parisi is
Amazon delivery.
oh,
Amazon.
Amazon delivery. Set it right there in the hallway for us there. Thank you.
You wanna be our public?
We can a chair for you. So the police is our largest, our largest fund grabber, I guess, from that, if you will. They cost us the most. Oh, chief. Over genius. That's the largest, that's the operating department, and our general fund, our overall personnel is right behind it, materials and services, as you can see, as well as the general fund contingency that we have about $1.5 million. So this is what you're looking at in funds, general administration, and again, we take about $190,000 from the other funds and we move it into general administration to help balance. And that's mostly in your personnel costs is where that goes back into. And how we do that is, we'll show that in a moment. We go through a process of indirect allocation by percentage. So you take a percentage, say the city administrator's time, maybe 5%, and allocate it to the water fund. So the water fund then transfers back 5% of that salary back into general administration to pay that. And indirect cost allocation. Now, this in the past has been called overhead. I think the more precise budget definition for public sector is indirect costs. That's what most folks will look at that. But what that is essentially if someone is providing a service that's used by all the funds, then you take that cost and move it back to the fund itself. So for instance, if the city administrator is managing the water fund, the water, sewer, and has a finger in that because they provide overall general administration and contact for the city, then you take a portion of that as indirect from those funds and move it back into the general fund. And we do that, again, it's allocated, it's about 190,000. It's not huge, and it's actually very reasonable. The auditors I've seen think that that's quite reasonable. The allocation method is percentage, and I've looked at it, and it's conservative. So I think that's very appropriate. Some systems, some folks, for instance, if your city administrator is also the water operator and lagoon operator, or wastewater operator, you might see a higher percentage of that. But in this case, it's about 5%. And it just simply goes into the allocation methodology. We basically, our street, sewer, and water funds are the transfers. We make sure that our costs are covered, and our enterprise funds, the water and sewer systems, have to pay for themselves. They cannot be subsidized by anybody, nor can they pay for anything outside of what they're designed to do. So a lot of folks have asked me, in particular, what do our water rates do? How can I get his water? We're raising our rates because the police department needs the money, and that's absolutely false. You cannot use the water funds to subsidize the police department, or the parks for that matter. Water has to go to water, sewer has to go to sewer, streets have to go to streets. And so the legal method of ensuring that everyone's paying their fair share is through allocating by the indirect costs. And last, we do have a reserve fund. And this one reserve, this is our, what we call our general reserve fund. It's not, and this is really what we have to pay for things like police cars. If we wanted to take $100,000 and use it for a police car, that's what we have. It's just a general reserve fund. A lot of cities have reserve funds, break it down even further. They have a reserve fund for public works, reserve fund for police, a reserve fund for vehicles. Okay, we only have one reserve fund. That might be something to look in the future, is that we separate this out a little bit so that we do not have pressure for one department or the other, that it can be allocated accordingly. If I had a public works fund or a water fund reserve, then I could take money from the water rates and put it directly into that. Right now, it would be difficult to put in a reserve fund because it's used by everybody. Our budget context, you can see this is basically what you're looking at in terms of our deficits. This is just a repeat of what we have already looked at, but we do look at the we do have funding set aside for some security upgrades. Part of that's already been done with cameras and that type of thing. We also, I think, will use that fund for our park. We discussed that at council last night. We have the police radio replacement, which has also come out of this. We funded most of that right now. That was $65,000 for radios and costs for moving from Metcom to Newcom. We do have replacement costs that we need to plan for. We've talked about that. And we've also discussed that, our operating funds are constrained. And we need to have, looking at those ongoing obligations that we have because of the structural deficits overall that the city is looking at. And Sean also had mentioned to me that our street fund, which is low, should have an additional fee placed on it. She recommended a $10 transportation fee. I believe we have that already, but she agreed, said that if we increase it to $10, that would be help with the compression that's on the street funds. That does not have to necessarily be decided this evening. Those fees can be added at any time by council. And I would say that some of these fees overall should probably have discussion and feedback for council before that's done. And I think that is part of the overall planning. So that is the very extensive overview of what we have in our city.
So question for you real quick, on page 25, Why do we see a decrease in the franchise fees between the 2026 amended and 2027?
Primarily because of Comcast.
What did well, Comcast dropped it down for sure, I see that.
Yeah.
Well, why did they go up to 16 and then back down to 5?
Well, part of that is because the original assumption was that, okay, so the FCC took internet services out of franchise fees. So if they're streaming, and that's what the Comcast model is now, is streaming, instead of delivering video over cable. The video over cable is a franchise fee, and we can franchise that.
Remember it now. Okay,
Yeah,
that's.
That is the primary.
And why is PGE dropping? Goes from what was 772 and 25, 162, 26, drops to 134.
Okay, so, that is because it's an estimate of what PGE is going to actually receive in revenue from the city of Hubbard for this next year.
They're not seeing the price increases?
They're increasing the price, yes, they're increasing the prices. Now, I discussed this with Sean about that, and she felt that because of what she heard from PG&E, to be a little bit more conservative in that area. I would have increased it a little.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I would, it was just a bit of a professional discussion on that particular item.
The other one was Northwest Natural too, took a really big dip from almost half.
Yeah, and that one also, I don't have an answer for you.
Okay, if you could just follow up, that would be
I would be
great.
happy to.
Yeah, and it's
I
not.
know the PG&E one, we had a bit of a discussion on that. I know the Comcast for certain.
Because
Because,
between the two of those, that's almost, what, 40,000?
and I think part of it too was that it was overstated in last year's budget. That was also part of the issue too. But I will absolutely.
It'd be great to know the actuals, and I know you can get those, but the actuals then from 2026 would help
Yes.
to understand what drove it down.
Right, and I did look at that, and we were low on PG&E. Okay, and I am not sure at the time that she budgeted PG&E, because I said, well, they're not paying us. As you recall, they finally sent a check for $104,000. And I do not believe that came into this proposed budget. I think it came from the actuals prior to that, them realizing that 4 months of franchise fees were not being sent. And when Sean figured that out, we got our money and the life is better. But I will tally those for you.
No worries.
There's been a lot of discussion that franchise fees should be going away. Because, the lobbyists or the big companies are thinking that's ridiculous that they have to pay
Yeah, can you
to offer
imagine
a service.
$220,000 loss?
Just saying, that's what the top spend for a while. Any other discussion, questions? I know us as budget members put our faith into our elected officials, you council members, and staff to make the best decisions possible, and we have nothing else to go on other than what you're telling us. And so I, for one, am comfortable with hearing it because I have nothing else to bring it up against. Any questions, other budget members?
No, what I was writing down, you explained it in the pie,
That's all.
makes sense now.
Excellent.
I will say the biggest thing, the council is doing is paying very close attention to the budget numbers. We are trying to avoid fee increases where we can. We know, we had quite a lot of discussion with the sewer and water rates that had to go up last year. The initial rates that came in, we pushed back hard on and we adjusted them down to where they should be. And even then, I was expecting more backlash and there wasn't. But that doesn't mean we're just gonna go run out and raise fees again. So council is having very open public discussion when those come around. That's why Steve was correct when he said that the discussion of an increased street fee or anything else, it needs to go before council for
It
the
does.
debate and discussion.
We don't have to like it.
Right. Gotta keep the lights on and.
Yeah.
Crap flowing downhill.
Or in some cases, it's.
It goes uphill. That's actually go uphill.
All right. with
And
that,
I think that's, again, there are deficits, there are, this is what we call a structural deficit. But I don't think they're gonna be solved by saying, let's cut this or cut that. It really has to be a very comprehensive discussion.
It's not doom and gloom like
No,
kind of came out of this meeting thinking it was going to be. Great, you want me to do public hearing?
right,
You
Uh,
betcha.
Shared revenue.
Julie, would you put that power, I had an extra, set of slides on there. for
Oh, you
this.
did?
Yeah, sorry, that's okay, I meant
Didn't
to,
realize that.
This is on state shared revenues.
Yeah.
Yes. It was the next, slide after,
Let me get back in.
yeah, right there, if you do right there, I can click the slide and.
Like this, plain.
All right, thank you. We did our questions, so here is our public hearing on,
Well, I'm gonna open the
state
public hearing.
revenues.
Mhm.
Last year, the chair.
Yes,
Thank you for the chair, it's gotta open.
I hereby open the public hearing on state revenue sharing.
okay. Presentation by budget officer. That's me. So Hubbard qualifies by providing police protection, streets, sewer, stormwater, water, and planning services. Why I list those out is because they give us a big list of things we have to qualify for, and we qualify with all of those. We have to do at least 4, and we have several. Okay, state shared revenue includes statewide revenue sources such as liquor, cigarette, marijuana, and other eligible distributions. Gas tax revenue is restricted to meet street construction and maintenance purposes. That's why that always goes into the street fund, cannot be used anywhere else. And the fiscal year 27 intergovernmental revenue is budgeted at $645,514 across all funds.
Questions and discussion by budget committee? Not hearing any. Any public, if there's any comments or questions?
There was no one on.
There's no one on, no public.
There's someone here.
It's a public.
There you go.
Says nothing. We will close public hearing on state revenue sharing. Public hearing on the 2026-2027 budget. I'm gonna open a public hearing on the 2026-2027 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The city is presenting a proposed budget of $15,575,303. This budget is balanced and complies with Oregon local budget law. The local fuel tax revenue assumption is included in street construction fund revenue projections. And then I'll just say, because I'm required to say it, that if voter action or final budget direction changes this assumption, the budget should be adjusted before council adoption. We are looking at a property tax levy rate of $3.9772 per $1,000 value. We're proposing a 3 cents a gallon local fuel tax, and our street construction fund altogether is $730,708.
So we're gonna put the 3-cent tax back on the ballot again.
Well, that's.
Yeah, it is.
It didn't pass the first time. correct?
Yeah, it did not pass. We had
All right.
not discussed it.
In that case, it's off the budget's head.
Okay.
And that's what Sean put on there, so that's.
It did not pass, and we
Okay.
did not discuss putting it back on. That needs to go to a vote.
Okay, so amended, we are not putting a 3 cents a gallon budget, a tax on this.
I didn't see it in there anyways.
Yeah, it's just on the, it was on the notes that, were prepared for
Okay.
this. I had to go through and modify this best, because this is not the same slide presentation pack that, has been previously presented, so.
And that's 3.9772, correct?
That is correct.
For 1,000 of assessed value.
Assessed value.
Right.
So you're voting on the $15 million proposed budget, the 3.9772 per 1,000. And the fact, and it's as stated, the 730,708 construction fund. And the only reason why that's on it, because we have, the part of the shared revenue goes into that. But it's really those two figures. That's what we The first two is what I have to report to the state of Oregon, by July 14th of each year.
Questions and discussion by budget committee members and city council members, anything?
No.
Not hearing any. Public, is there any comments or questions?
Yeah, we did not vote for the 3 cent.
You should,
Just to clarify.
just to think how much I could do with that. Well, I tried, what can I say?
I'm gonna close the public hearing on the budget. All right, the committee. You've heard the tax levy rate. You've heard staff report. The other staff report.
There's no more staff reports.
Okay,
We got it.
I'm asking for a motion that we approve the tax levy rate as stated by Steve.
Yeah, I move that we approve the tax levy rate of 3.997 per $1,000 of assessed value. As read by interim city administrator Martinenko.
I'll second.
I amend that, he said 3.99, it's 3.977.
Oh, sorry,
That's Dave.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, tax levy rate has passed. Committee members, do I hear a motion to approve the budget as stated before us for fiscal year 2026-2027?
I make a motion that we approve the budget for fiscal year 2026-2027 as stated. I'll second.
And first and seconded, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, passes unanimously. With that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
That's been seconded by everybody, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your input.
Who
Everyone?
seconded that?
First,
Thank you.
well done.
Tom, James over there.
Chat with you.
Almost 2 hours.